Brock and Joe. Brock and Joe. Brock and Joe. Brock and Joe. Brock and Joe.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Rock and Jouv Show.
Welcome.
We got a special episode planned for you here.
We got our NBA draft, if you will.
Yes, so with the NBA draft coming up this Wednesday, what is that, the 15th, Al? 18th. Let's do something special. You know, we could always go over the mock drafts. We could do it till it's dead, and I'm sure we have in the past in this show. We've just loved, I mean, we're suckers for a good mock draft, right? I would totally agree with that.
Absolutely. I think the Rock and Jouv show, since its inception, has always been team mock draft. We've gone over countless mock drafts for countless years. It's time to switch it up. It's time to switch it up.
Exactly. It's time to switch it up. Let's give it something new. So today, what we're going to do is we flipped a coin. And a lot of these teams, that's probably going to be the case. I don't know. What else you got?
So, yeah, essentially, what we're trying to do here, we're trying to simulate this draft as best as possible. So, like, we're going to have 2 minutes each for each pick. We're going to have 2 minutes to discuss who we think they should take, maybe just. And it's not a hard 2 minutes. It's not once the time expires, then that's it.
Oh, I disagree.
Show's over.
I disagree.
All right. You know what? We will.
We got a timer for a reason here. We're going to use it.
If you don't have your picks, then sorry, you lose.
It's not your pick anymore.
And then the one thing that we are going to change, obviously Ashton, if you've listened to the show, Ashton, big Celtics fan, so he kind of got lucky that the Celtics picked 14, 26, and 30, so that's all. And then the Knicks pick at 8, which is also even. So I'm going to take control of the Knicks pick, and then he's going to just flip one in front of me and take the Detroit pick.
Yes, and you'll have to remind me when we get there, but that is the case. That's a very fair way to do it, I'd say.
No, I think absolutely. I think it wouldn't be too fair if I said, here, take 9, so I could have Detroit take someone shitty, and then the Knicks get somebody good. I think we did it the best way possible.
I wouldn't put it past you. Not past the Knicks, at least. So without further ado, if you'd like to start the timer, sir, I think you're on the clock.
3, 2, 1. Let's get it. All right, so I will be picking for the Minnesota Timberwolves, and I have ready, so we might as well just talk about the pick for 2 minutes. You can give your opinion. I think that the best pick here has got to be Anthony Edwards. They have their point guard in D'Angelo Russell. They have their center in Karl Anthony Towns, and everything after that. I mean, maybe Culver might be a future piece. That is kind of up in the air. So I think you have to go with the guy with not only the highest ceiling, but arguably the highest. Not only the highest floor, but arguably the highest ceiling as well. And ultimately, I think that's Anthony Edwards. I don't like the James Wiseman fit, and I don't really think that any other player is worthy of taking number 1. How about you?
Well, I'm not going to say anything to shoot myself in the foot, seeing as though I have the second pick. But, no, I definitely think D'Angelo Russell and Anthony Edwards could figure it out there. With a pick like that, you're either saying, this is the lineup we're going with, we're not going for Booker, or you're saying, this is the best available player, please take this for Devin Booker a little bit down the road, you know?
And if you think about it, I mean, Anthony Edwards plays the same position Devin Booker does. So.
Yeah, I think that's an easy slide in, and, you know, obviously Devin Booker's a great player. What is he, 23? Maybe he's run his course in Phoenix, and that happens. You know, we've seen good players in places not play well and then get traded to other places and play extremely well. The player that's on my mind most recently is Brandon Ingram. You know, traded from the Lakers, decent on the Lakers, gets traded, flourishes on the Pelicans.
I'm going to lock it. All right, so Golden State on the clock. 3, 2, you're underway.
All right, well, here's my thing. Golden State, obvious pick could be James Wiseman, right? Big dude, center. They lack at the center position. I really wanted to trade this away. That seems to be the most obvious answer.
Do you have any team in mind that you want to trade with?
Well, I'm starting to piece it together. You know, I was thinking, I don't know, it's tough, man. If you make a deal like this, I mean, the Warriors are going to be a team to beat next year. I strongly believe that. I can't find another player or another team that I think would actually give something to the Warriors. I think a lot of teams are going to wise up to that, and they're not going to let that happen this year. Nobody's going to give them any more firepower.
Because Golden State's going to be a
Yeah, for sure.
Like, what team realistically has a win now piece that they're going to give that also needs the second pick?
Right.
and has someone that can get the second pick
The
for.
Cavaliers were running around in my mind, but yeah, Andre Drummond's a 1-year flyer. Kevin Love, I think, is a great player, but then you lose Draymond Green, and I know Draymond Green obviously isn't great anymore, but I still think he has like the ability to play at a high level, especially in this system.
I think when Steph and Clay come back, he's going to turn into a little bit better of a player.
I also think that.
The other name I've heard floated around is Miles Turner, but I don't know if he's worth the number 2 overall pick.
No,
As good of a
I agree. I think
you have 5 seconds.
Okay, I am gonna. What am I? The evens? All right, I'm trading down to number 6.
Oh, all right. So then.
Okay,
6.
so pause the timer and I'll explain the draft or the trade. I'm gonna trade down to number 6 with the Atlanta Hawks. So the Atlanta Hawks will select here, and they will select James Wiseman. Okay, the trade details: the Warriors give up the number 2 pick, and in return from the Hawks, Clint Capella. In return for the 2nd overall pick, they get Clint Capella, and they also receive Treveon Graham and a 2nd rounder.
Interesting. Well, they get away with not giving up any of their other young players. And then who do you have Atlanta selecting there?
They're going to take James Wiseman.
Interesting.
If I can quickly explain it, I think that James Wiseman is a better rim runner than Capella. He's a better offensive threat than Capella. I think him and John Collins together will go really well. And I think that's, to me, if I could speculate what the Hawks want, and I am speculating because I am the Hawks, I think they want to put together a nice 5. And I think DeAndre Hunter, Trae Young, Kevin Huerter, John Collins, and then James Wiseman is a great 5. And I think the first thing you want if you have a great point guard, a great young point guard, is you want a great 4 and 5 to be solid, picking up those rebounds. I think that's definitely what they're going to get with him. So that's my answer.
Very interesting. I mean, I feel like on one hand, they didn't have to give him too much to jump 4 slots and really select a guy that fits their team the best and probably the best player talent wise. So I think it's definitely interesting. I'm surprised that you didn't have him throw in a Cam Reddish or something, but.
Yeah, I just didn't think the Hawks would want to give up on him so quickly. But that's just me.
No, I agree. All right, so I'm going to start the clock now, and with the 3rd pick, I have the Charlotte Hornets. All right, so I'm going to start the timer. So Charlotte has recently they've recently said that they want to go after Russell Westbrook. Not sure about the fit, both with the fact that the Charlotte Hornets kind of feel like an irrelevant team. And I don't know. I mean, they just got Terry Rozier, right? They have Malik Monk. They have Devontae Graham, who was a breakout player for them, right? So they have a lot of guards, and then, I mean, they have PJ Washington, who was pretty good last year, and they have Miles Bridges, right? So I think be very guard heavy. James Wiseman would have made the most sense, right? You get a really, really good center, you bring him in, and bam. And right now, I think with him off the board, they could swing for a Okongwu. Be a really, really good player. Some people think he could be like a Bam Adebayo light, really, really athletic player, good 2-way player.
Who is it? I'm sorry.
I was talking about Okongwu out of USC.
Okay.
I think ultimately the guy who makes the most sense here is ball, because if you want to put the team back on the map, if you want to get some star power, you have LaMelo who can come in, play either the 1 or the 2, and you still have Devontae Graham. Right, maybe you try to trade Terry Rozier. I don't think that makes sense here, but I think you try to build a young team and you have a guy who could eventually be a superstar, or like maybe not a superstar, but a star type player, like one of the best point guards in the league if he does pan out and it's 6'8". He could be a really, really good talent. So I'm going to go LaMelo Ball.
Is that your final answer? I have a trade has been proposed to you for this number 3 pick. You can still select your guy if you'd like, or you can take my trade offer. My trade offer is going to be from the Chicago Bulls. I'm going to offer you Otto Porter and Chris Dunn and a 2022 second rounder and a 2023 first rounder from the Chicago Bulls.
I'm honestly going to have to turn that one down. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I do the 2023 first rounder is interesting. I think if this is Kobe White, I think about it.
I'll do Kobe White
instead of
Dunn.
I could think about it, but then I feel like I would want to give up Batum. If I'm moving down, I want to get rid of that Batum contract, get rid of Biombo, even though both of them I think are only there for another year.
I'll take the Batum contract.
I don't know how this is gonna work money wise.
It'll work.
I think that
Gimme.
I think right now Chicago really wants LaMelo Ball.
I think so.
That's who I have Chicago taking in my own mock that I made on my own. I think it makes a lot of sense, even though they already have Kobe White. But I think Charlotte's gonna try to swing for the home run here, and the guy that they're gonna after LaMelo Ball won't really fit the team as well, and won't put the team on the map quite like LaMelo either will or won't.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I understand you.
I'm gonna decline your trade, and I'm gonna hold on to the third pick and LaMelo Ball.
All right, so I got the Chicago Bulls. I just tried to trade up. All my guards know that I think they're garbage. Great. What am I going to do about that? All right, here's the thing about this team is I've heard a lot of like real life trade talks about like maybe Zach LaVine going to the Warriors. I've heard a lot of that in the air. I don't know about any of that right now. All I can say is what I'm dealing with, and what I'm dealing with is a pretty decent roster, young roster. We got Lauri Markkanen and Zach LaVine. You got Wendell Carter Jr. I think that what that lineup needs is more scoring. I think that we could really benefit. I was tossing between Obi Toppin and Denny Avdija, the kid from Israel. Both 6'9", both can score the ball pretty well. About the same, just 5 pounds difference. But that kid Obi Toppin is something special, I think. I mean, he is a bruiser, but I think he was averaging something like 23 points in college.
No, he was crazy at Dayton. He was
yes,
crazy.
he really was. I really like that. I'm a little concerned with his outside ball. Do I add another non-outside shooter to this? I'm not going to think about it too much. I'm going to go with Obi Toppin at number 4 for the Bulls. Lock it in.
Nice. I don't have any trade offers simply because I don't think that's a bad move at all. I think it does. It's kind of weird what you can do with Markkanen and Wendell Carter Jr. Like maybe, there's been a lot of talks about trading Markkanen, and maybe that could happen.
I could even see playing this guy at the 3, to be honest with you.
No, he could. What is he, 6'8", 6'9"?
Yeah, he's 6'9". I just didn't take Denny because of some concerns that I had that I'll go over later after he gets selected.
Yeah, I think I can't say that Obi's a bad pick. I really can't. I think playing him at the 3 is a little bit of like an old school lineup, but
I think we're just trying to acquire talent, and when it works, it'll work.
I think that's probably the phase Chicago's in right now. Whether they do trade LaVine, whether they trade Markkanen, and whatever they do, I think they're trying to acquire talent and set themselves up for the future. So I'm gonna start the clock for my next. I have the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think Obi Toppin would have been a great fit for the Cavaliers as well. I'm looking at the guys that are still on the board. And I think at this point, it's probably a no-brainer. I think that Denny Avdija is probably the best guy left on the floor. I like Okongwu from USC. He could be a really, really interesting fit because, going forward, Kevin Love isn't going to be there forever, and he's kind of declining. They're going to trade him, and Andre Drummond is going to be there for one more year, and then maybe leave at the trade deadline. So I think you get Denny. He's probably going to be a knockdown shooter, right? He could be a secondary ball handler as well. They have Colin Sexton and Garland. They're both kind of combo guards. So they'll be doing plenty of the ball handling. And you kind of look at the Cavaliers roster, and they have, and he's kind of like a much, much better version of Cedi Osman to me. That's what I see from his game. He could be a pretty good defensive player as well. He does have a high ceiling. Some people compared him to Luka. I don't necessarily see that. I think they have different games, but I think like at the worst, he could be like a Dario Saric level player. And Saric isn't bad. He's like a solid player type guy. So I'm gonna go Denny at 5.
Yeah, I like that for them. I think they just need scoring, and they're just kind of at like a transitional phase. And if he can pair well with Darius Garland and Colin Sexton, so be it. It's not going to make or break the team.
Yeah, I mean, I think at 5 you can get a potential game breaker in Denny. I think that's got to.
Okay, here I am going to take that. Sorry. Here I have the Warriors at number 6. Obviously, we traded out from number 2. We got Clint Capella. Happy with the trade. Here, however, at 6, I'm going to take Onyeka Okongwu. 6'9" center, USC, 245. He's a big dude. He doesn't really need the ball. Shot pretty highly from the field, but it's just kind of like, basically around the paint kind of shooting. Honestly, I thought earlier in the year he was going to go much higher than this. Maybe not much higher, but I thought he was going to be higher than, a lot of the draft picks have him around 10, 12. I don't like that. I think he's a decent player. I don't think he needs the ball, and I think he can get a lot of rebounds, and that's what these Splash Brothers need. They're going to come back. They're going to be a little rusty to start the season, and I think he can help keep them afloat for the first while. So
yeah, I think if Golden State is able to trade back and get a win now player and still draft a Conway with 6, I think would be a really, really good fit. I mean, great defensively and like really versatile. He almost kind of has like a little bit of. I think he could learn a lot from Draymond Green, even though Draymond Green isn't as big or as long as Okongwu is. But I think that he could learn a lot from Draymond, and that could be a really, really.
Yeah,
because of how good they are at developing.
We just
talent.
really need depth, and I think if we can bring in a young guy, to really ease that transition. I mean, he's just basically going to be a Draymond off the bench, just rim running, protecting, hitting high percentage shots. Then,
yeah. Up next, you're going to be staying on the clock as the Detroit Pistons. Go ahead.
Great, thank you. This one's a bit easier for me. I'm going to go. Detroit doesn't really have a guard. They don't really have much of anything right now, to be honest with you. They're kind of in a tricky situation where their roster is just terrible. I'm not quite sure.
The roster is terrible.
It's terrible. It's a terrible, terrible roster. I mean, all right, so with this Detroit pick, I'm going to go ahead and take Killian Hayes, play professionally over in France. I think that...
Right, so... I'm gonna stop you right there.
Please do.
All right. So with the Knicks, I have them at 8. Correct?
Yes.
I have the 8th pick with the Knicks. I would like to propose a trade.
Okay. Let me hear it.
So I would like to move up to 7.
Mitchell Robinson, Kevin Knox. Whoa. Thank you.
I would like to. We'll swap 8 and 7.
Mm-hmm.
The Knicks are going to give up the 3rd. In this draft, second round.
Okay.
I'm going to throw in Dennis Smith Jr. I think Dennis Smith Jr. is a guy with a lot of talent, but ultimately, I think he's probably going to need another change of scenery. I don't think that. I think he kind of fell out of favor with the Knicks last year. I know that was a different regime, but I think he's probably going to go, and I'm willing to throw in whoever else needs to be thrown in to complete this deal. Do you have anyone else in mind?
I do. I'm glad you asked. Okay, so I'd like Dennis Smith Jr. I think that's a good move. I would also like... All right, look. Kevin Knox, right? He's a good player for you guys. Sure. You guys are getting really crowded, okay? You have RJ. I feel like Kevin Knox and him not really meshing well together. What do you say about getting rid of Kevin Knox?
I think if I'm only moving up one spot, I'm trying to hold on to Kevin Knox to see what Tom Thibodeau can. I mean, he definitely had an abysmal sophomore year.
Sure.
I would be willing to throw in a counter offer. Would you be willing to make that either Reggie Bullock or the second-year player Ignas Brazdeikis?
Would you consider Julius Randle?
So I would definitely consider Julius. I would consider Julius Randle. I mean, as a Knicks fan, I wouldn't be upset if we did trade Julius. I'm just gonna look real quick what other picks the Pistons have, because if we give up Randall, he's really not. I don't like the fit with the Knicks roster, but he's still a pretty decent player.
Sure.
Detroit, please come in. Oh my God, Detroit doesn't have a second.
It's
round
not
pick.
fun to make a trade if they don't have a second round pick. It's just not.
Ooh, come on, who runs an organization without a second round pick? Even the Knicks have a damn second round pick. Well, that sucks. Who else do the Pistons have that I could be interested in?
Well,
Um,
I'll give you Thon Maker.
I was just looking at Thon Maker.
I'll give you Thon Maker or Mihailuk.
How about instead of Julius Randle, how about if I make it Bobby Portis?
Yeah. Okay. Dennis Smith Jr., Bobby
All right.
Portis, and your second round pick for the 7.
Yeah, and then you pick 8 again. All right. So with this pick, I think it's I made this trade because I really want the Knicks to take Killian Hayes. I think if he's able to fall to 8, that's a steal. I think he arguably could be the best point guard simply because of his ceiling. I mean, obviously LaMelo Ball, if he does pan out, could be a star type level player. We were talking about that. But I think Hayes' consistency, very, very crafty. I believe he's only 19 years of age. Very, very crafty from the film he's watched. He's very left-hand dominant. And RJ Barrett is a lefty as well, not as left-hand dominant as he is. But he's just a really, really good overall player. I mean, he could work in a three-point shot this year than he was previously. And he's a really, really good. He has really, really good tools defensively as well. And I think you have him, you have Frank, you have RJ, you have Mitch. That's a pretty. I'm done. It's kind of sad. I was very excited over the fact of taking Hayes, and then I think later in the draft at 27, you might want to go for more of a shooter, role player type guy. But I think Hayes is perfect to be the point guard of the future. A good guy, and Dennis Smith as well. And now I'll throw you on the clock.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm glad it worked out for you.
Thank you.
Now we just solved our point guard problem. I'd like to still address the depth. We still have Blake Griffin, who's a decent player. But at the end of the day, we need to start putting up shots. Luke Kennard is pretty good. You know, I don't think he really got the chance he deserved. Hopefully, maybe can see some building around him. But I don't see anybody immediately that I love. So I'm going to go ahead and take Tyrese Halliburton as the Pistons. I'm going to go ahead and take Tyrese Halliburton because he's 6'5". He's slotted at the point guard spot, but I'm sure he can kind of play an off-ball 2 guard.
No, I was going to say the same thing. I could absolutely see him slotting in as a 2 guard, like combo guard type. Yeah, I feel like he plays bigger than.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think I need to make this team a little exciting. I think Blake Griffin's obviously that seems like that was their hope, and obviously old man Blake Griffin couldn't get it done. And you know, I like Blake Griffin, I really do. But I think that this Tyrese Halliburton and the acquisition of Dennis Smith Jr. and then Bobby Portis is going to kind of give this team a little bit of life, a little bit of grit. We all know that's what Bobby Portis is good for. So I'm locking it in. Tyrese Halliburton is going number 8, Detroit Pistons.
All right, so then the clock. So at 9, this is an interesting pick now. I like two guys a lot here. I like Devin Vassell, the wing out of Florida State, as well as Isaac Okoro, the wing out of Auburn. In my own mock, I had off the board with my first 8 off. So the guy I had here is Vassell. I just feel like he's a very Wizards player. I don't know how else to put it. A really, really good 3-and-D guy. I need to stop saying really, really good. But what he brings to the 3-and-D guy, when I was watching his film, it's kind of like, oh, shut up.
It's okay.
He's a good shooter, right? He's a good shooter. He has the potential to be a lockdown defender. Maybe not a Kawhi Leonard, but absolutely. I know that's what he's bringing to the table. And it's kind of like, oh, but here's him putting the ball on the floor and being a scorer as well. And it's like, here's him running the floor. Here's him. I think he had a nice poster dunk as well. And it's kind of like he's billed as D guy, but he can kind of do a little bit more. And as of right now, they still have Wall, they still have Beal. While I could be tempted to go with Cole Anthony, while I could be tempted to go with, I don't know, Aaron Nesmith, someone like that, if they're thinking of shipping those guys out. But right now, I'm looking at the roster. They to make it work, and then let's not forget they have who's probably going to be playing the 4. I really like him, and I think he's going to take a big jump in year 2. So you bring in Vassell, he could slot in at the 3, and then all of a sudden we got a nice team. For the playoffs, and at the very least, even if they do ship the guys out and they're getting a good player for their future, Vassell at 9.
It's funny. I actually had I had Washington taking a point guard. I actually had them taking Killian Hayes in my mock draft. I just thought John Wall's got to go out again eventually, unfortunately. And if you bring in a good, strong point guard that was going to be available, hopefully at this point, then that would have been a great acquisition for them. But I'm happy that Killian Hayes went to you guys. All right, so with my Suns, I wanted someone that can give some life to this team. Okay, obviously they need some help. They need like a really athletic young guy. You know, a lot of the guys that are left available are either 3-and-D wings or point guards. We don't really need that. I'm anticipating the Suns will actually make a trade or, as I said in our previous episode, I think that they're going to acquire somebody. I don't remember who exactly I said, but I did have them picking up a point guard in free agency. I think they're going to address that issue, and to take a point guard this early is not a great idea for me. I'm going to go ahead and select Precious Achiuwa from Memphis with this pick. I think he can be a high-energy player. I think he can be an offensive threat. We didn't really get to see too much of him. I mean, same thing with James Wiseman. I mean, I think this was a good team. So I think Precious is a good choice here. I think the Suns will end up losing Devin Booker, but I think if they do lose Devin Booker, they're going to get Anthony Edwards. They're going to get something like that. They're going to get good value for him, and I think it's going to be at a similar position because the 4 and 5 is pretty much like a dead position. So I think Precious, along with DeAndre Ayton, Kelly Oubre, another point guard to be determined. I think that they're going to see some success. Bridges is over there. I think Precious is a good choice, especially at 10.
I like him a lot. I was watching some of his film last night. I think he's going to be an incredible rebounder. In 2 years, he's going to be averaging a double-double easily, and really good defensive player as well. I mean, he kind of does foul a little bit, but I mean, every single young player fouls a lot. I think he's borderline defensive player of the year potential if he does pan out, and I like that a lot. Most of the guys in Phoenix, aside from Bridges, are just big offensive players. So you bring in a guy like that, especially at the 4, where they're probably going to be losing free agency. I like that pick. I'm going to start myself on the clock at 11, and I'm not going to take too long on this one. I think the no-brainer pick right here is Okoro. Simply because you look at that roster and they're probably going to have to trade DeMar DeRozan, right? It's just, and they're probably going to have to trade LaMarcus Aldridge, whether they get shipped out together or separately. They're going to try to maximize what they can out of those two guys. But I think the guy, I'm not the first one to make this connection, but I think some people look at Okoro in college at Auburn and look at Kawhi Leonard when he was at San Diego State. See a lot of similarities in the fact that Okoro is quite simply the best defensive player in this draft. I think that's a pretty fair statement. At least, I mean, Wiseman could be a really good defensive center, but as a defender, I love what Okoro brings to the table. I'm not saying he's going to become Kawhi Leonard, right?
Right.
But his shot isn't there yet, but Kawhi Leonard's shot also wasn't there. So if he could I'm not even Kawhi Leonard light, even just become a poor man's Kawhi, I think that I don't know how much longer Greg Popovich is going to be with the Spurs, but he's got the whole system after him. I think they're going to know how to maximize he brings to the table and really develop him well. And if they're going to go with White and who's the other and DeJounte Murray, if they're going to go with those two guys as their guards, not a lot of other. And then they also Miami that they took. But I think they got a lot of guards that you bring him in. He can play the 3 or the 4, and just incredible defensive player right off the bat. I think that's what Popovich is going to like, and I think that's the perfect fit for.
I do agree with that choice, just because he, even him falling down to 11 is pretty good. He is a great defensive player. So, it's funny, man. I was just kind of going over this today. You see all these notifications, and we were talking about it before, like DeMar DeRozan to the Lakers, like LaMarcus Aldridge to the Warriors. It's like, man, Russell Westbrook wants out. James Harden could be on the table. It's like, who knows what's going to happen? And like we were talking about the other day, this is going to be a crazy month. I mean, really, because it's going to be so short. You know, there's
I
so
think
much
so much can
potential,
happen. I really do.
and it's kind of like, again, we were talking about this before, but it's like I think people see how vulnerable it is. Like the 6th seed or whatever made it in the East to the finals, and it's like, wow, Giannis is not clutch. He's not good in the finals. Crazy. Like Jimmy, like people know, and that was a good Heat team. Don't get me wrong, but like if that it's not going to happen again next year. I don't think. Who can say? Nobody thought it was going to happen this year, but people also see the teams in the West bleed. Like the Rockets are bleeding, and the Clippers are
Oh my God.
bleeding. They see how weak that is, and teams teams in the West were missing the playoffs by like 4 games. I mean, we said this a couple episodes ago that every single team in the West is going to look to make the playoffs. I mean, even the last 2 seeds in the West were the Warriors and the Wolves. You're going to tell me those guys aren't going to make a gun for the playoffs? Of course
No.
they are. So I think a lot of teams want to bunker down, and I think it's time for those weaker teams like the Spurs to kind of take a back seat. The Spurs need to do their rebuild. I think, Pop, it's time for him to retire. Duncan just left the coaching staff, if you just saw. I think it's time for Pop to retire, and I love Pop, one of the great all-time coaches, but give it to somebody else. I say you let DeMar DeRozan go, and I say you let LaMarcus Aldridge go, and I think, you just start your retirement a little early. That's me. That's just my opinion. But, so again, just to what you were saying, I think it is going to be a crazy month. I think the Spurs are going to look a lot different. So taking Isaac Okoro is a nice way to embrace that future.
Yeah. I'll start the clock.
Yep, please.
Go ahead.
The Kings have good guards. They have a couple good forwards. They don't really have anything in the middle, unless you're counting Harrison Barnes, but I'm not. I'm going to say the Kings take Sadiq Bey from Villanova.
Ooh.
Pretty decent, 6'8". I think that's only like a couple. I think that's like about Marvin Bagley's height, honestly. But he's a good shooter, 45% from 3. He can guard multiple positions. He's a sophomore. He's a little bit older, a little bit stronger, about 216. I think that's a good pick for them. There still are a lot of point guards and shooting guards left, of course. There are different players that I think could have been successful, but I think that De'Aaron Fox is their guy, and I think that's the right move.
Yeah, no, I think De'Aaron Fox is the main guy to build around. Hopefully Bagley can become better because you passed up on Luka Doncic for him. Yeah, I agree. Sure, Barnes might start for another year. I think they might have Jabari Parker if they accept his option. But you look at the core of that team, there's definitely a massive hole in the middle. And not a lot of defense being played there as well. I mean, Fox is decent, but the perfect 3-and-D guy. Like, you need 3-and-D guys on your team to win. It's as simple as that. And I like Sadiq Bey's game a lot. I think you look at McCall Bridges just came 2 years ago out of Villanova, been basically exactly what we thought. And I think Bey coming out of that same program is going to be a very similar type.
I think Jay Wright's a good
player.
coach over there, honestly.
I think Jay Wright's fantastic, and I can't name a bust out of Villanova. I mean, they don't have to be star players, but all of them have really been. They've just been solid.
Sure.
They've just been solid pros.
Totally.
God, I did it again. I'll start the
I'm gonna
Pelicans.
I'm gonna leave all those in. I'm gonna leave all your doubles in, just so you know.
You should. And in the description, I'll put we got a really, really good episode coming up. All right. I'm going to start the timer now for the Pelicans. So at 13, we look at the Pelicans roster. They have Drew Holiday. He's going to be on his way out. Not sure what they're getting for him at this point. Are there any teams that could? Ooh, Dallas. No, but Dallas wouldn't be trading up and getting Drew Holiday, or would they? I might almost have because I could make a trade here. I could make a trade that doesn't necessarily involve a pick.
Yeah.
And they'll get another pick. No, I'll worry about that later. So the Pelicans at 13, I think they're keeping this pick. I think this was the perfect draft to add another guy to this core. They have Lonzo Ball. They have Brandon Ingram. That is an incredible young big three. I think that's going to be a crazy team in a couple of years. I think they have to bring back Brandon Ingram. They really do. It was an all-star this year. Obviously, Zion's going to be there until he's not. And Lonzo Ball, definitely underrated. A lot better of a shooter, really good defender. So here you kind of, same thing. You need 3-and-D on your team. Decent, not as good of a defender as the other guys in this list, but there's got to be the guy. I got to look at is maybe Tyrese Maxey to get themselves a little more scoring, but I think you're still going to get that out of Brandon Ingram, out of Zion. Aaron Nesmith, I think, has the potential to almost be maybe the best shooter in this draft. And you look at this team, Lonzo Ball made strides as a shooter, but not great, right? Zion Williamson, not the greatest shooter. Brandon Ingram got a lot better. I mean, he's a pretty good shooter at this stage in the game. Another guy who could really stretch the floor. I think with Zion and Lonzo Ball, you're gonna need the guys that can stretch the floor, or else they're just gonna stack the paint and they're not gonna be that good of a team. But I think you bring Aaron D. Smith in there. I think fit. If they're able to get him at 13, I think that's a steal. All right, who's going to Boston at 14?
The Boston Celtics are prepared to make a freaking blockbuster trade, guy.
Let's do it.
Boston Celtics are going to trade away the 14th pick, the 26th pick, and the 30th pick.
Oh my God! So you're not even going to be in this draft anymore?
I'm not going to be in this draft anymore.
Oh Christ!
In addition to that, I'm also going to trade away Kemba Walker.
Oh my God!
And Gordon Hayward.
Oh my God! Who are you getting?
And in return, the Boston Celtics will be retaining to the player formerly known as James Harden.
Oh! La Juega Harden! La Juega Harden!
This trade was sent to me. Me and my buddy Chad. Chad's a friend of the podcast. If we got over, we were kicking this trade around. And it feels right. I'm sick of going for the small fish, and I hope Danny Ainge feels the same way. In order to make the money work, we would probably retain somebody like Robert Covington, or maybe even like DeMar Carroll or something. I just think this works for both teams. Of course, the Celtics win that, but honestly, do we? I think that's a pretty, they always say whoever trades away the best player loses. I think here we're giving away Kemba Walker, and I do love Kemba, but I think the Rockets are getting rid of Russell Westbrook anyway. You take Gordon Hayward for a one-year flyer. Maybe he's successful, maybe he's not, who knows. But then you get Kemba Walker for a while, great player, great leader, and you get 3 picks in the first round, and then the Celtics get, one of the best players in the NBA, somebody that can, I would totally disregard our depth problem for somebody like that.
Yeah. Now, just for the sake, would you be willing to make it? You trade your second round pick instead, and like a future lottery protected first, and then you hold on to 30 just so you have a pick in this draft for Boston.
I would appreciate that. I think that's a classy move on your part.
I think that's the way. That's a really intriguing trade.
I don't think they would ever do it, but I wish they would.
No, that would be kind of insane. And I think it would be a good fit for Harden just because Jaylen Brown can guard people, Marcus Smart can guard people, and like you, that superstar at least yet.
I think that's the only thing that's setting us apart. I mean, Tatum is growing into that. Brown, is growing into a 20-point per game scorer. You still have Smart. Maybe we pick up a center along the way. Who knows? And I saw a similar, not a similar trade to this, but a similar like grab for Drew Holiday. I wasn't a big fan of it. I see that we're pursuing him. I mean, I like Drew Holiday. Don't get me wrong. I think him, Smart, Brown would be a pretty much 3-headed, unstoppable defensive monster. I don't know. I'm just not into that. I want the big fish, and I want James Harden.
I think if you're going to go Drew Holiday, there would be a great get if you want to play him at the 2 alongside Kemba. Like maybe you give him Gordon Hayward and some other young guys or something. I think, no, I kind of agree. You go for the fish. I like that.
I appreciate that. I appreciate the support.
Now, with Houston at 14, who are you taking?
Rockets didn't even have a pick in the first round, and that's why I was able to finesse that. It was either Rockets end up on an even team, and I'm all set, or Rockets end up on an odd team, and I'm screwed. I got to make this work with you. Although you seem to have liked it. You probably would have made it happen. But I'm going to go ahead and take Cole Anthony at this position. I think he's a good player, and I think he's a great scorer. He had some really exciting games, and I think you don't want to. There's no guy here at the 3 or the 4 that's enough of a game changer. I think Cole Anthony has a lot of upside. I think he's got some serious potential. I don't really see any other guy this high up that's going to make that much of a difference.
Yeah, he's definitely a ceiling type player. I mean, I kind of see a lot of similarities between him and Dennis Smith Jr. I think he has to go to the right place with the right structure around him. And I think if he plays alongside Walker, or maybe is like the backup. Or I mean, if they're trading everybody, they could probably afford to play him at some two and play them together a lot. But yeah, I think if you're going to try to get a star to build around potentially at 14 with the guys left available, I think that's probably the right move. I'm just going to restart we haven't had the clock on for a while. I'm just going to restart the clock at 15 for Orlando. You look at this team, they've kind of been drafting young guys for a while. And they made the trade, obviously, to get Fultz. They still kind of don't have like that superstar guy. I mean, they have Aaron Gordon's pretty good. Um, they have Vucevic, who I think move as well. I like Boston as a fit for Vucevic, but I think there's plenty of other teams that could try to get him as well. But assuming that they keep the pick, I like Tyrese Maxey. I think he could be. They're gonna have to really develop him, because I think they're probably gonna lose what's his name, Fournier. I think he's probably gone. So you kind of need a guy who's you need some scoring there. Fultz could be a good scorer, but he's kind of inconsistent. I think at the very least, Maxey could be a really good combo guard. And if they really work on developing him, I think Maxey is a player that, if a team can really commit to him, could be one of the steals of this draft. And then also young backcourt duo with Maxey and Fultz, and you never know. Like those two guys could become a really good formidable pairing. And Maxey's not necessarily a slouch on the defensive end either. I like that move. And then you got other guys. You got like Jonathan Isaac. You got Mo Bamba, defense players, right? Defense first players, and you bring in Maxey, who could provide some offense.
Yeah, they do need something, man. I definitely agree with you. They're another roster, just like the Suns, man. It's like, how many young guys can you stack? I think the Magic are more suited to be successful than the Suns are. You
See,
know?
I don't know about that, because the Suns at the very least have Booker, and like Booker's way better than anybody the Magic have, and then even Ayton.
Yeah.
I mean, Ayton definitely wasn't the right choice at number one, but
Did you see that thing that the Magic were shopping Aaron Gordon? It's like crazy, man. Like this could be
I feel
this could be a very
I
different
feel like
next season.
they're kind of going to shop everybody. And I told you when they brought back Vucevic that they should have, it wasn't worth it, that they should have just played Mo Bamba. Now Mo Bamba had that health thing, but I think they should commit to him as the starting center as long as he's okay to go. And if be a first round pick or something like that for Vucevic, they should do it. Portland is now on the clock.
All right, Portland for me. I'm taking RJ Hampton here.
Ooh.
Yeah, just great shooter. Just trying to add to this, depth, really. I don't really know what's going on with Portland. It's kind of tough situation because they obviously have, top 10 player in Dame, and they have Hassan Whiteside, who's good, Nurkic, who's good, CJ McCollum, who's good. Carmelo's coming back. They have a good team, but I think they could use some depth, shake up the roster a little bit.
I think RJ Hampton, another guy. A lot of the teams that are picking the teams that maybe are like fringe playoff teams or kind of locked are going to be taking guys that, if they develop well, could become potential stars or at least quality starters. And I think RJ Hampton definitely fits that bill. Yeah, I can't really say anything too much about that pick. I think eventually they're going to probably trade McCollum. And I don't know if they're trade Lillard, but eventually I think McCollum's probably out because they're going to have to shake it up. Because I think that team probably hit their peak. And I think RJ Hampton would be great alongside Damian Lillard if he gets to learn from him as well.
Who do you got picking with the Wolves? 17.
No, I'll move on. 17. This is a guy a lot of people around the game even have him going top 10 out of Florida State, and that's Patrick Williams. Kind of like the combo forward. His game is interesting. I'm not exactly sure what, but we look at. I already had Minnesota taking Anthony Edwards at 1. So they have a 1, they have a 2, and they have a 5. And then I will slot Clover in at the 3 for now as well. So I mean, there's kind of the whole. They have Juancho Hernan Gomez, but I don't think they have really a building block, and I think they also kind of don't really have defense as well. And Patrick Williams could be a really versatile player. He could play some 3, he could play some 4, and they don't have any other players on the roster that are exactly like him right now. I know he's a raw talent, I would say, but I don't know that there's a player that's better, that fits the team better, other than maybe Vernon Carey, that has a higher be able to play the 4, but I think a lot of people around the game like what Patrick Williams brings to the table. So
Dallas at 18. I did really like that Patrick Williams pick. I'm going to go ahead and take Keir Lewis Jr. here.
ooh.
Alabama sophomore, 6'3" point guard. 48.8% of his threes last 7 games they played. I mean, man, he is a shooter, and if that's not what Dallas needs, then I don't know what is. He's going to have to play off ball, of course, because Luka, that's where he dominates, his ball in his hand. But if Luka could just drive, kick it out to somebody on the wing that can actually, reliably hit a 3-pointer, then they're going to be golden. He's not going to have a lot of pressure on him in the beginning. I think he could really flourish there.
I gotta say, I love that pick. I think he was one of the best kept secrets of this draft for a while, and I think a lot of people are starting to watch his tape and come around. He kind of very, very good all around player. I've watched a lot of his film recently as well, and there's really not a lot of holes in his game. Knicks taking Hayes, right, so that they're not going to be going for another point guard. But say they take an Okoro or Vassell, something like that, and they need another guard later on in the draft that they could package 27 and whatever else and move up. That's the other guy I really have my eye on. No-brainer. Luka's not a real point guard. I mean, he'll slot in at the 1, but he's not a true point guard. But I think Kyra Lewis next to him is perfect. Yeah, I love that selection. So now 19, I got Brooklyn. I think at this point, I'll be kind of surprised if Brooklyn keeps this pick just because they're going all in on trying to put guys around KD and Kyrie Irving. I have the Pelicans, right?
Yes.
I don't want Brooklyn to get a third guy, so I'm not going to do this straight. I had Brooklyn taking Josh Green, who I think would be good. They might be losing Joe Harris, so they're going to need another shooter, another guy to space the floor. I think the other guy I could think of maybe taking is Poku, but he's really a developmental guy, and I think they need a guy that's going to be able to control with them. So I'm going to go Josh Green at 19 for Brooklyn. I think he's also one of the best shooters in this draft. He played alongside Nico Mannion at Arizona. He had a really good year. I think he's the perfect guy to slot in to be a role player right away.
Okay, so number 20 for me, Miami Heat. This is tough, just judging by their latest success. It's kind of like, well, what do they need? What could they use? I'm going to go with Trey Jones here from Duke. Another a good shooter, somebody that could, run the point. I don't know. Maybe Kendrick Nunn works out. Maybe he doesn't. I don't know. I think obviously Kendrick Nunn was a second rounder. He's a nice story, but Trey Jones is a legitimate first round pick, and he could even end up being a lottery pick. Who knows?
Because I feel like Trey Jones would fit with what Miami has going there. He probably won't be the starting point guard right away, but he could mold into that potentially. He could go anywhere as high as here at 20, and then he also could slip into the second round just because there's so many point guards in the draft. He's a very mature kid, good leader. Yeah, and they're not going to ask too much out of him in the beginning, and I think, I think that's a very Miami Heat selection. I thought that if Kyra Lewis, he's a no-brainer at 20, but with him off the board, I mean, why not go Trey Jones?
I think they found their identity in this postseason, and you love to see that. Truly, you really do. I don't think the Celtics have found their identity. I don't think a lot of teams have. And I don't think that playing around. I don't think the Bucks quote identity playing around Giannis is an identity. That's not. That's just having a great player and giving him the ball.
It is.
I think
a great player. Exactly.
I think the Miami Heat found their identity. They're flamethrowers. They're share the ball, rebound well, shoot the ball. I mean, that's it. Eric Spoelstra did a great job coaching them. He coached that LeBron team, and don't get me wrong, they had great shooters. Mike Miller, Ray Allen, they had shooters. I mean, he even got Chris Bosh to shoot the ball, But I think they definitely found their identity, and I respect that, and I think that this is a very on-brand pick for the Miami Heat. 76ers.
21 got 21 and a half Philly. I think at this point they have to take a guard because they shying away from playing Ben Simmons at point guard, and I don't know that it necessarily worked. I mean, didn't you guys sweep them? Was it a sweep? Was it a gentleman's?
Gentlemen's.
Did not end how their season did not. I got a couple of options here. See, I like Poku. I feel like he's slipping a little bit. I think he could go as high as like 13, 14. But again, what I said, I think that they're going to go with a guard, even though it might not necessarily be the guy, the point guard of the future. They have to have at least a guy who's going to come in and be able to play 20 minutes a game. I like Tyrell Terry out of Stanford. He's another guy that's been rising up draft boards lately. There's a couple options if we're looking at point guards. There's Nico Mannion, who was the upside. Ramsey as well out of Texas Tech. there's even Theo Maladon on our friends, but I think that they're going to go with. I think they're going to go with Terry. He has a lot of talent, and I think he'll be a guy that could be a solid contributor his rookie year right at Stanford. Maybe mold into a really good player as well.
I'll go with 22 here with the Denver Nuggets, and this is tough. This is tough because I think they found a lot of success, and they already have a lot of cooks in the kitchen right now. I don't think that they need any more. I don't think that they need a guard. Jamal Murray's on fire. They still have Gary Harris, who they're paying a lot. At the 3, they could have Michael Porter Jr., I mean, 6'10", but he could definitely play there. He could also play at the 4, where they have Paul Millsap. They're all set with the 5. They even have a decent bench. So I'm thinking, what do they really need? Cassius Winston, Michigan State senior. The Nuggets are in a win now. And I don't mean win the championship, but they mean win now. I mean, they came pretty close. They did. They went to the...
Nobody expected them to make the Western Conference Final.
No. And I think that Cassius Winston, being a senior from Michigan State, made 43% of his threes, comes off the bench. He's already experienced, 6'1". He already knows what he's doing out there. I don't see a problem with that. I take Cassius Winston if I'm the Denver Nuggets.
Interesting. I feel like it's a little early for Cassius Winston, but I mean, he was an incredible player his whole career at Michigan State. And yeah, I agree that they're definitely win now. So they're going with the guy who's going to be able to contribute right away. So with Utah at 23, I think had I not taken Tyrell Terry, he would have gone there. I mean, I think another reason that Philly would like Terry is because of his shooting, and I think that would be perfect alongside Donovan Mitchell. I took him. So to me, I don't know. Theo Maladon just kind of feels like a Utah player, if that makes sense. I mean,
Sure.
they're probably going to have Mike Conley for another year, and then maybe he could be the starter after that. He reminds me of what's his name? Who was the kid out of Australia? He kind of had injuries, didn't necessarily pan out. Like
Dante Exum.
Yeah, Dante Exum. I see some Dante Exum in this game, but if you're going to get that kind of value, really right now I'm between Maladon and Vernon Carey. But I mean, they have Gobert, and Vernon Carey potentially has a shot, but he's got to work on that. He's a developmental player. I think that they're going to go Maladon, who's another developmental player. The mold of. I think he's the perfect Utah Jazz player, and I think he learns behind Mike Conley and he grows alongside Donovan Mitchell, and then you got a pretty good option there.
Sure, I like that. They do, have 2 young guards, and I like that. I'm also going to go with the youth movement here at pick number 24. I have the Milwaukee Bucks, and I'm going to go ahead and select Nico Mannion from Arizona, freshman, 6'3". I think that this is a nice replacement for George Hill off the bench. I couldn't even imagine taking somebody at the small forward or power forward position because Giannis is going to be so dominant. And I think they really don't need a lot. They just kind of need somebody to give them the ball. But they do need people to make shots, and I think Nico Mannion's a good scorer. As I said, George Hill's getting old, so he's not going to be there forever. Eventually, he's going to want to go to a win-now team, and I don't think that's Milwaukee, unfortunately, as he's demonstrated the last couple seasons. So, Nico Mannion.
At 25, I have the Thunder, and I'm going to make a trade here. The Knicks. And there's really one guy that I have my eye on. I was really hoping he was going to fall down this low, and he has, and that's Jaden McDaniels.
Oh, nice.
So basically, this trade is going to be the Knicks moving up to 25. They're swapping 25 and 27, and the Knicks are going to throw in picks 30. Did I trade 38?
Yes, you gave me that.
Okay, I did. I thought I did, which is a good thing that next year they have a Charlotte Hornets, I believe, second rounder. I got to look at the Knicks picks real quick because they just got a good. Right. So obviously that pick isn't going to have as much value. They have Charlotte and they also have Detroit, right? So I'm going to trade. I think the Detroit one's going to have more value, right? So I'm going to do that. I want to throw another guy in. I want to throw another guy in so that it feels like legitimate trade because they're probably not just going to take a second rounder to move up to move back 2 spots. So I'm going to trade Wayne Ellington if they want to, or Reggie Bullock. Reggie Bullock probably has more value just because he's only making. So I'm going to trade Reggie Bullock. They could even decline the option, but for $4 million, why wouldn't you take that? He's a good shooter and overall a solid player. I liked Bullock. The Knicks are moving up to 25. OKC's moving down to 27. At 25, I'm taking Jaden McDaniels. Simply, I feel like there's no reason why he should fall this late. Watching what he brings to the table, I mean, 6'10", he can play the 3 or the 4. There's definitely some questions about his consistency, his shot selection at times, but I think he definitely has the ability. I mean, similar flaws to LaMelo Ball. He definitely has the ability to shoot. Incredible pull-up game. Could be one of the best scorers in this draft if he does pan out. And I think the Knicks at this point, with the new regime, understand develop their players. And on top of that, he has a wingspan greater than 7 feet. He's shown, I would say he's shown promise to be a plus defender at the college level as well. And I mean, really athletic, really good. Alone that him falling to 25 is a no-brainer. The Knicks should move up, do whatever they can to get him.
I
So
like
I'm
that.
going to 25, and I like the fit because he could play the four long term in the modern NBA, and we don't have another young guy besides Julius Randle, but he's going to be on his way out.
And I think if he would have won another couple of years at Washington, he probably would have had a little bit more success and wouldn't have fallen this low.
No, I completely agree. Houston now is going to have this.
26, Houston Rockets. I'm going to go ahead and pick up Vernon Carey Jr. I think he has a lot of upside, 6'10", 270. He is a more traditional kind of back to the basket kind of guy, but the Rockets have recently acquired Kemba Walker, Gordon Hayward. I think they're starting a youth movement, and although there were some decent players up to this point, I don't really want a senior. I want a nice, young, strapping young man to come in and help this team succeed. And I do predict that the Rockets will get rid of Russell Westbrook as well, have a bit of a fire sale. You fire, the coach is out, the general manager's out, your two best players are out. I don't know where Russell Westbrook is going, but he's going somewhere young. I could see him somewhere, maybe I could see him in a Magic uniform. Who knows? But I think regardless, I think the Rockets will be getting a lot younger this coming season. I think Vernon Carey is a nice way to hold it down. I think they're kind of over the whole small ball thing. That experiment didn't really work. So yeah, Vernon Carey Jr. I don't see why not. Duke, good players come out of there. So why not give him a shot?
Yeah, I really like that. I think Vernon Carey is another guy that was supposed to be top 5, top 10 player before his freshman year. wasn't terrible at Duke by any means. I mean, he did put up pretty good numbers, but he wasn't tape wise. They didn't see what they wanted to see out of him. But if you're telling me that Houston, if they do have a fire sale, but then they have two potential building blocks of Vernon Carey and Cole Anthony, I mean, both of those guys, they're definitely those are the names that they're bringing in, right? If you're a Rockets fan and you have a fire sale, you're going to be pissed as hell. But Cole Anthony, Vernon Carey Jr., those are two names that you can get behind with a rebuild, and I think it'll be a lot easier on their fans if they're a thing like that. If you have a good start to a young core, plus Kemba Walker, plus whatever good guy you're going to get back from Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, and I think you are going to get back some young depth with him.
Oh, absolutely, and interesting we haven't really played too much. If we did that where we control all 30 teams, kind of like we're doing now, just to see what the Rockets would get back and how that team would run. All right, so for the Thunder, they'd move back to 27. They got a future second, and they got Bullock, who's a guy. I mean, he could play. He could literally fit in on any team. 3-and-D. We've talked about that all episode. So at 27 with the guys left, I think.
I was gonna take him.
No, I mean, I think you had to go Vernon Carey for Houston because, I mean, his floor is definitely a lot higher, and he could, and you just bring in. I mean, Poku, he's gonna have to put on weight. He's gonna have to add some strength. But I mean, he could be potentially a really good shooter. He could be the next Dragon Bender. He could also be the next Kristaps. You know what I mean? But he was also a good defensive overseas where he played. He averaged over 2 blocks and over 2 steals. I think he's really intriguing simply because a really good shooter for his height. What is he? I know he's at least 7 foot. I've seen him at 7 foot. I've seen him, I think, as tall as 7'2".
Wow.
He could be one of those guys. Really long developmental player though. Like we have to talk about that developmental, but I mean OKC has always been a good developmental team. They kind of don't have a big man. They don't really have another young big man right now. I mean they got Darius combo forward, but I think that's a great pick. And I think even if they ship out Chris Paul and lose that in leadership, he's able to spread the floor in the modern NBA. You take your chance on a guy like Poku.
No, I agree. Somebody that big, yeah, like Kristaps really kind of set the bar for that. You know what I mean? You take a chance on a guy.
And even if he becomes like Davis Bertans, had a great year last year. Someone like that, if you can get that that kind of player at 27, you do it.
You can't complain.
So you got the Lakers now?
Yep. So I have the Lakers, and I wanted Poku, but you went ahead and took him. I'm gonna go ahead and take Xavier Tillman.
Oh, Ooh.
Yeah, junior, 6'8",
He was the Xavier kid, right? Wait, no, Xavier Tillman,
he went to
Michigan State.
Michigan State, yes.
Yes.
Junior,
Sorry, I
6'8".
Tillman.
Yeah, junior 6'8", 245. I just thought he was a nice player. The Lakers could, they don't really it's not like they have a small margin for error. I mean, they could take a chance on like a big guy like that. I don't see a problem with that. And he's a junior. He's a little bit more experienced, so why not?
Tillman's like another one of those guys, exactly like experienced, kind of like Cassius, Winston. Go towards the end of the first round because a team like the Lakers obviously bring in an experienced guy because they're trying to win another title, but then like also he could be another guy that slips. But yeah, I think definitely the more veteran player if we're talking just. All right, so at 29 is Toronto. I mean, I haven't made too many trades. I think I just made the Knicks trades, but it just feels very Toronto to keep this pick because they love taking their late first round guys and developing them into studs. I mean, we look up and undrafted guys like Van Vliet, but you look at Siakam, OG Anunoby. I mean, there's Chris Boucher, Terrence Davis, Matt Thomas, Norman Powell. Like that's what their team has been built on.
Yep.
So I kind of look at that. They got Siakam 4. They really like OG at the 3. They could realistically be losing Fred VanVleet, so maybe they go point guard. Could be losing Ibaka. Definitely losing Gasol. He's going to go play overseas. So maybe I want to go with a big man. Oh, I hope not. You want a big man? Who feels like the Toronto pick? Because Toronto goes with guys that I know will fit their system. I feel like they have any other point guards? No, but they can take one next year. No, but they have Boucher. You know what? I think they're going to try to take their next point guard who steal and draft. I'm going to go Jemias Ramsey from Texas Tech. I mean, Texas Tech was a great team again this year. I don't know. I think he was the driving force behind that. They're going to want to go with a guard. I think unless they do pay Fred VanVleet, Kyle Lowry will not be there forever. I mean, Ramsey could probably play the 1 or the 2. He's 6'4", a young guy as well, a freshman. Again, like they like their high upside guys. Ramsey's a lot of people like his game as well. This just seems like a draft where there's a lot of guys that have potential to be the steal of the draft. Toronto's the perfect place for him. He gets to learn behind Kyle Lowry, and really, they like to play 12 guys deep, so he's going to get some playing time his rookie year, and I think that's the move. Last but not least, you got Boston.
I'm gonna close it out here with a pick I've been wanting for a couple years here. And that's Killian Tilly out of Gonzaga.
Yeah, there it is.
I do, and I'm glad you gave me this last pick. I do like Killian Tilly. I like big guys, man. I like big guys, especially when they could shoot the ball. I mean, Killian Tilly's 6'10". He was shooting 40% from 3. Senior, he's going to come out experienced. And if we're going to bring in James Harden, which I do hope we will, and in this scenario we have, we're going to need guys that can shoot the ball. We're going to need guys that can catch and shoot, and we're going to need big guys that can bang down low. I was really between Killian Tilly or Udoka Azubuike. That was somebody else. I just thought maybe we wanted an absolute dominant beast in the paint, picking up everything. Yeah, I'm still not sure. I mean, both of those guys have a lot of value, but I think I'm going to have to go with my gut here, Killian Tilly, and if, in the second round, because we have the 17th pick in the second round, and if Udoka Azubuike falls down to us there, then hey, I'd take him. But other than that, Killian Tilly's my pick here.
Yeah. When I was selecting for Toronto, I was like, who feels like the pick? I feel like I could see Oturu, I could see Ramsey. Killian Tilly just feels like the Boston pick. Do you have any Gonzaga guys in your team?
We had Kelly Olynyk.
A little bit of like a similar player. I mean, Killian Tilly, the senior. I think Boston, they took a lot of guys with upside last year, right? They took Romeo Langford, right? Romeo Langford. Sure. So they went with the upside guys that they could develop. But I think Killian Tilly also is an upside. Said it that Boston is lacking that stretch big man. Killian Tilly brings that to the table. He does have the injury concern. I mean, he lost basically his 2018-19 season because of injuries, and Gonzaga definitely missed him. And he's had his fair share, which is why he could slip into the second round. But quite frankly, he's a first-round talent. He just feels like the Boston pick, whether it's at 30 or what do you guys have, 47 if he falls that far, or you trade up or buy a pick, whatever. I think he definitely feels like a Boston guy and complement the roster well.
Really, after doing this whole mock draft, I'm actually pretty excited how the Celtics look. You know what I mean? You get James Harden, you get Killian Tilly, and I do like Gordon Hayward. And look, we gave him a shot, and obviously it was a freak accident. Things happen. But after hearing like he was exploring his offers, I'm okay with letting him go. And especially if it's for somebody like James Harden. I think anytime you have the chance to go after James Harden and you don't have to give up Tatum or Brown, I think you absolutely do that. I'm just happy how the Celtics look after this. I kind of wish it was real, but Danny Ainge plays it safer than that. And real life isn't 2K, man. You got to hold on to players. You can't just make them relocate their entire lives just because you found somebody better after a season. I don't know, unless it's James Harden.
No, I feel that. Yeah, I'm incredibly excited for this draft. Right when quarantine started, I've just been watching plenty of videos, just trying to figure out what guys bring to the table. Obviously, I'm not the GM of the Knicks. I'm not even the assistant water boy. I'm really excited for the future of the Knicks team, and I think that there's a lot of guys in this draft. I truly that if you told me a couple of years from now that they're one of the 5-10 best guys in this draft, that they become a quality starter, really the perfect role player that a team needs to take themselves to the next level. I think there's so many of those guys in this draft, and I had a lot of fun doing this.
Me too. This is certainly our new mock draft format, I think, if I could say.
Yeah, I would love to do this again next year.
That being said, next Wednesday we'll figure out if we're right or wrong. Next episode of Rock and Jouv, that's what we'll be reviewing, exactly that. We'll go through and see our picks and how we did and how we fared, and we'll kind of discuss some of the trades that probably inevitably happened. So stick around for that. Come back next week.
Absolutely. But we have a bunch of other really good ideas that I think you guys will like, and that really even I'm sure we'll have fun doing.
We always do.
Yeah,
we always do. But that being said, thanks so much for listening again.
Rock and Jouv.
Everybody take care. Stay safe.
Rock and Jouv. Rock and Jouv. Rock and Jouv. Rock and Jouv.